Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Take Care and Live podcast. Really excited to be connecting with you today. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen, and I am pleased to carve out another time for this session. We continue our series on momentum. We're talking about the momentum thieves. We've done 4 so far. We're going to cover the 5th one today. And the 5th one could be pretty sobering, so I'm going to prepare you now for the reality that it might make you feel a little uncomfortable. It certainly did its work to make me feel a little uncomfortable, but I've grown with it over time and experience, and I hope to offer you today the lesson and the benefits of the lesson that I have learned from this momentum thief. And momentum thief number 5 is the cost of refusing to focus. The cost of refusing to focus. Do you know when we experience the cost of refusing to focus? We experience it when we refuse to put guardrails around our potential. Believe it or not, you and I don't have the time, emotions, or intellectual capital to do any and everything. Time is limited. And so, one of the things we have to be really deliberate about is honoring the truth about time and potential. We do not have limitless potential. You heard me correctly. We don't have limitless potential. You can't be anything that you want to be. You can't do everything that you want to do. Yeah, I told you it's going to make you a little uncomfortable. It may sound inspiring. Those things might propel you forward to take risks or an action or get something done that maybe you are hesitant on, but it certainly didn't lead you to attempt to do everything. You'll quickly find your attempt to do everything results in you doing nothing. You simply can't. You weren't built to do everything. You were not wired to master every area of life, business, leadership, or creativity. Certainly, there are many of us in the world that have multiple gifts and talents. And if we're not careful, we can lump ourselves into a false identity that thinks that, hey, because they can do it, I can do it. You have your own sets of gifts and talents and abilities that have to get nurtured and time spent to cultivate them, to make them the valuable asset in your life and other people's life it needs to be. But if you continue to believe that you have the capacity to do everything and be everything at all levels, well, you will burn yourself out very quickly, chasing things that you were never meant to master. You only get one life. You and I only get one life. We don't get 2, we don't get 3, we don't get 4, we don't get 5, we don't get 9 lives, we don't get 10. Your time is limited. Your energy is limited. Your mental and emotional bandwidth, say it with me, is limited. It's just the reality. But if you're anything like many of the people that battle with that reality today, particularly in our hustle culture, we fall for the trap of believing that if we're not doing everything, we're falling behind. That if we're not trying to get a hold of the best opportunity now, then our ambition is too low, that we must not be ambitious enough. We take multitasking as if it's a badge of honor when the research itself tells us that multitasking actually limits and reduces individuals' productivity. You have to differentiate the difference between being able to think on many levels at the same time and multitasking. When you multitask, there's something that always gets sacrificed. In the same way, and even more to your detriment, is your attempt to master multiple things rather than give concentrated effort in a few things. You don't become less valuable by not doing everything. You become less valuable when your attempt to do everything actually squanders the time, emotions, and tangible resources that could be dedicated to a few things so that you can do it well and offer it to your sphere of influence and to the world in the best possible way imaginable. So here's the problem: trying to do too much waters down everything. Essentially, that's what happens when we try to do too much, and oftentimes we're overbooked and overscheduled. We try to do too much, and what it does, it waters down everything. We end our day depleted, exhausted, and feeling like we didn't accomplish much because we were overbooked and overscheduled. Similarly, that experience filters into this sense of potential, right? When you try to do too much or cultivate too much or master too many things, you actually end up mastering very little. And what ends up happening is you become frustrated, things are left unfinished. You could also develop a level of anxiety and frustration that leaves you confused about which direction should I really be going into, right? If you've experienced that, I'm glad you're here today and that you're listening to this, because we're going to unpack this a bit. And by the time you're finished this episode, you'll have a clearer sense on what it is you need to do to get out of the trap of believing that your potential is limitless. Now, I'm going to give you a personal story, but before I do, I want to just clear up a little bit more about this limitless potential. Children, when they are born into the world, I want to clarify that we really have no business saying or describing for a child that they are limited, that their potential is limited, because children are still in the developmental phase, uncovering um, who they are. And the observers of children and people working with children are uncovering the identity of who that child is and what they're good at and what they seem to have a particular gift for, or talent for, or ability to cultivate a particular skill. All of those things are still in the developmental process. And so the only audience with whom I would say we would be very careful not to communicate that your potential was limitless would be children. But then there comes a point of maturity where we grow and time has passed and we've mastered or become good at particular things. And it doesn't mean that you can't grow and change and develop and be flexible and adapt. We are always adapting, but there are certain things that you will know for sure you are good at or gifted in doing. And if you don't know, there are plenty of um, inventories that will help you do some assessment of that. This episode and this show is not about that. I invite you to look up some very reputable ones. I won't even name them because there are a number of them that will help you uncover what it is that you have great talent for, where your skills can be best used, what you actually may be gifted at being and doing. Really important investments of time. But I'm spending a little bit of time here to unpack this for you to articulate that the one audience with whom we're careful not to say you have limited potential are children, because they're still in the early developmental stages. They are still uncovering who they are. So when you see young people even into their mid 20s doing this intense exploration and reimagining of the possibilities, or really stretching themselves, those are natural things that we need to be patient for and embrace, because they're uncovering more and more about themselves. As a grown man beyond his 40s, um, I'm always discovering something new about myself, but there are things about me and what I'm good at and what I'm gifted in doing and being, I know for sure. Now, how they are showing up in the world or how I'm able to exercise them and where may experience their own frustration points, because maybe it's not getting nurtured. Maybe it's the environment. Maybe it's the season of time in my life. Maybe it's where I'm putting my focus in comparison to the other, which is creating a little friction, but it's still necessary. But I'm still operating in my gifts and talents. Um, but operating in that, knowing that I have a limited capacity in which I'll be able to utilize those for the greatest level of effectiveness possible, right? Um, with younger people, with children in particular, you leave the door open for exploration because you as an observer want to get a sense of who and what they are and what they can offer the world, help you figure out what to nurture. As an adult, you enter a different phase, right? You're no longer having the milk of life. You're having meat and potatoes, and you've matured to that because there is a level of understanding about yourself and functioning in the world that you have come to that younger children may not have, and that should be and are to be given the room to explore. So I hope I unpacked that for you, but and gave you some more clarity on it. And you might walk away from this conversation and not agree with me. I would beg to differ, and we can have a conversation about that. But that is a real present reality. So I'm fiercely transparent about protecting and guarding what we say and what we believe about children. When it comes to adults, um, I always, when I people that I coach, I talk to them about what it is they believe they can do, and I'm always trying to break through barriers about what they believe is possible. And I challenge that, but I challenge it in light of what I understand about them to be good at, what they're gifted and talented at, and what they have unique abilities for, based on what we've talked about and what I know of them. But here's a little personal story. Enough about everybody else. Let me tell you a bit about me. A personal story. Um, I am talking about this topic from experience because you could describe me in a lot of ways as a generalist. Generalists are people who tend to have the ability to operate in different spheres, different environments. Um, they're people who may not be specialists in one thing, but they have a clear understanding of a variety of things, which makes them appealing to a number of environments because they're adaptable, they're malleable, they're not married to one particular direction. There's a level of curiosity and willingness to embrace the unknown and the unpredictable that serves them well because they're not necessarily married to a specialty. Ever since I was a teacher in the classroom, I was someone who was able to learn a subject. The only subject to stay away from was math. That's another topic altogether. Never good at math, not even as a kid. But I had the ability to adapt to other subject areas. In organizations that I worked with, I tended to take positions and have roles where were pretty challenging roles and where a lot of people wouldn't step into them because those opportunities that others would avoid for me were opportunities to adapt, to bend, to not be married to one particular methodology. Those were ideal conditions for me. In part, I'm that way because of having an arts background, right? Artistic people, creatives who, particularly folks who are in music or art or instrumentalists, they are or actors. Those individuals know how to live between the lines to create a rhythm between what might be a static movement or might be tradition, be able to create something that kind of brings a little bit of a different perspective to what is seen as tradition or the norm. And so having an artistic background served me well as a generalist. And I think over time I became a pretty good one. But the challenge with that was that it created a moment of crisis because I had gotten so used to being a bit of a chameleon and serving people and serving a need that was existing for other people or a particular organization, but not really feeding the area where I had developed particular gifts and talents and skill that if I invested in them could mature to be something really great. Right. And so as a creative who transitioned from music to more of the field of psychology and organizational development and education, moving into those fields in where those areas tended to have, particularly in education and organizational development, tend to have kind of static processes and ideas of being and doing. My perspective allowed me to be able to flow, and allows me even still to flow between the lines, move between the lines, which can make some people comfortable and other people uncomfortable. But in doing so, if you're someone who tends to be a generalist and can kind of be a chameleon in different places, that will come to a head at a certain point because you will be exhausted from underserving your own gifts and talents and overserving the needs of other people from what their expressed need or priority is and not yours. So for me, I came and had a little bit of a come to Jesus moment, right? Because I realized that that kind of generalist mentality was beginning to take me hostage and keeping me from focusing in and putting guardrails around my potential. Because when you are someone who can flow in a variety of different environments, you get used to serving one need here and one need there, and somebody else's priority there, and meeting another challenge over there, or being able to manage a crisis over here. There are so many ways in which you're stretched that the uniqueness of your own gifts and abilities can get compromised. So that's one of the key things to be mindful and careful of. You become someone who never really finds their way because you're used to falling into the flow of other people's expressed needs, right? And so that's my take. That was my experience. Um, Letting go of what you could be good at in exchange for mastering another area that if you invested deeply in it, you could be great at, is something to really consider. The reason why many folks are held hostage is because the investment of their time, the investment of their emotions, and the investment of of their tangible resources have not been concentrated. When you are determined to isolate where you're directing your energies, when you're determined not to live and be married to this hustle culture where you have to be good at this and you have to be good at that, and you can't fail here and you can't fail there. When you are attempting to be all things for all people, you're actually allowing your potential to go untamed. And what your potential needs more than anything else is guardrails. You put guardrails around your potential, not because you don't want to see yourself succeed. You put guardrails around your potential because you want to safeguard what you're good at, what you have the ability to do that other people don't do as well, what you are particularly gifted in that actually, when you execute on it, has a tremendous influence on how other people may behave, or decisions that are made, or the results that are produced. You want to put guardrails around your potential and where you focus it, because when you do, you get better at it, it gets stronger, and the possibility of its impact becomes even more profound. I'm going to give you this example. Let's say you had orange seeds, a small bag of orange seeds, and you planted those seeds in a concentrated area. You planted it there because it had the greatest potential to grow and bear fruit in that particular spot. The soil was rich. The temperature in that location was just right and just what was needed to grow orange trees. Now, granted, it takes a while to grow orange trees, but you plant the seeds in that environment. You decided that you would focus, yield more of your attention, or give more of your attention to yielding the orange trees in a limited concentrated area. The concentrated area, concentrated investment gives you a concentrated outcome, right? So you decided to do that. Now, if in you doing that, you actually create the opportunity to see the best possible outcome of your investment, those seeds into the soil in that concentrated area. But if you scatter those same seeds across different locations indiscriminately, having um, not spent time understanding the context of the environment in which you're scattering those seeds, see your potential as those seeds, just putting them in different areas, hoping that somehow it will turn up as a good investment, that something good will come out of it, you're actually compromising and sabotaging your potential, right? You are sacrificing the potential benefit, the potential fruit bearing experience of those seeds. And you are also compromising your use of time, because the reality is, if you were even to identify 10 locations to scatter seeds as opposed to three that you were confident would be great places to plant, and instead you identify 10, you not only are scattering your limited resources across different geographies, you are also wasting time trying to figure out if the environment in which you planted those seeds was the right environment. Was the soil good enough? You actually are spending extra time that you don't have, or that shouldn't be utilized, trying to survey all the possibilities of other locations where you're planting seeds or want to plant seeds, hoping that something gets produced, rather than identifying some of the few key areas where you can see the greatest return on your investment. Certainly, there is no guarantees, but you see the concentration principle. The likelihood of you getting a strong return on your investment in a location where you know the environment is fit for producing the kind of fruit and outcome you're looking for, right? Those two or three locations is very different from attempting to scatter the few resources you have across 10 different places. What does that do? You actually are treating your seeds as generalists. You're treating those orange seeds as generalists. You are trying to serve a multiple number of areas, but never going deep, never allowing the resources to go steep into one location and looking for a desired outcome, which would be likely if you did so. So, since time is limited, the ability to survey all those territories where you want to scatter those seeds will likely be more time consuming, more labor intensive. It will reduce your focus, it will reduce the quality. And so you just go down a rabbit hole of poor stewardship of those resources. Similarly, is with your potential. I work with a lot of leaders who really struggle with giving concentrated effort when they're giving or tasked with giving concentrated effort of their time, of their emotions, of tangible resources. They begin to panic and fears that they're getting trapped, and so they want to be busy here. They want to be a part of this organization. They want to lead this group here, and they want to lead the organization that they're currently a part of, in whatever leadership capacity they have. There is an overextending of themselves that actually creates a hostile environment for their potential. And so there's an increased frustration there, because there's a discomfort with the mundane. There is a discomfort with going deep, with allowing themselves to navigate the discomfort of the mundane or an unpleasant situation. There is a discontent for waiting to see how the concentrated effort they put in a few key areas where they know they can make the most impact. There's a lack of patience to stay there and wait and watch it mature and become something great. A lot of us are in a hurry, and so they struggle with wanting fast answers, getting the most out of doing the least. And it is a recipe for stress and anxiety, and too many people today are experiencing it. And if you read my book, The Momentum List, how to rediscover how to delight in time rather than be mastered by it, you'll find some very uh, interesting facts about the impact of this of the work culture that we're in, where people are spread entirely too thin, and what is actually doing to people's heart health, and people's livelihoods, uh, and as a result, what it's doing to communities. And it's a global problem. It's not just a local problem. And so I went on a tangent maybe, but I hope I gave you a clear picture, right? So the refusing to focus is a momentum thief. The refusal to embrace the guardrails that are needed for your potential will actually steal your momentum because you're too busy trying to do too many things. You are too busy trying to be great at too many things. The world deserves your focused, concentrated effort. The organization that you're leading deserves your focused, concentrated effort. The family that you are raising deserves your focused, concentrated effort. No one is asking you to be perfect. There is no perfection, but you underserve your gifts, talents, and abilities if you allow yourself to attempt to serve all environments all the time, everywhere. Right? This thought I saw something move kind of freaked me out. Didn't. My cat's walking around here somewhere. Anyway, all right, I hope that was helpful. So let me encourage you. Focusing is not failure, right? Focusing is not failure. You're not a failure if you focus. You're not a failure if you have to eliminate some things from your life that keep you from giving the best in some of the key areas that matter most. If I go back to that generalist experience that I had as someone in my come to Jesus moment, I decided that there were a few things I wanted to do well. At that season of my life when I had this journey, I was very much involved in music as a singer. I could do that well. I was called on in the clutch to do projects with people. I also was entering the field of education and cultivating my voice as a writer and a thinker. And I had to decide where was I going to put my energy. And I remember was in my late 20s, and it was like pulling teeth. I thought I was actually experiencing a loss of some kind when making this decision, but I knew it needed to happen. And so I decided that I was going to stop making music an emphasis for me, that what I was going to do was commit myself to being in this field of education and being a great educator and being a great writer, to really work on those areas, to be someone who can um, communicate well and tell stories well and communicate messages well. And that if music was in the cards for me down the line, I would embrace it when the time came. I would trust God that the opportunity would open up for me to exercise that gift in the right environment in the right time. But I needed to say, hey, guardrail, I need you to stand on up on this side of my life because I need to protect my potential. And so for you, you might have to do the same. And giving up one thing to invest more deeply in another where you have the gift, the talent, and abilities is not failure, right? That focus is not failure. Um, and a part of being able to say no, a part of being able to make that decision is not a reflection of your capability. It's actually an act of wisdom, right? You can't build momentum if you're refusing to put barriers around your potential. I'm not saying barriers against your potential. I'm really encouraging you to think about what are the barriers you need to put around your potential to protect it, to guard it. Where are you particularly gifted and talented that has been underserved because of how you've allowed your time, emotions, and tangible resources to be used? Um, and while you might be doing something good, it was not what is great for you to be spending your time and energy on. All right. There are boundaries that protect your time, your energy, and your tangible resources. And you need to put those guardrails there, those boundary lines there for yourself. That might mean giving up some things you value that were important, but you have to make a decision. You'll have to make a decision and decide what and who and where will get the best of you at this point in your life, whatever point in your life that is. I'm going to catch my breath. Now, let's talk a little bit about gifts, talents, skills, and abilities, because I'm using those terms, and you may not have clarity or may need clarity about what they are. All right. To build healthy boundaries around your potential, to build healthy boundaries around your focus, you need to have clarity about the distinction between gifts, talents, skills, and abilities. All right. Because understanding these will help you know where to focus your time and your energy, your emotions, and your tangible resources. All right. So let's review those. So, in case you don't know, or in case you just need clarity, right? Because we get busy in the hustle and we're like, what exactly is the difference between the two? Well, I'm going to share that with you now. Gifts are what you are naturally born with. Technically, gifts are things you're naturally born with. It's instinctive. It's almost effortless. It's those things that you can do without almost thinking about it. It just comes naturally to you. It could be something like empathy. It could have having a tremendous sense of rhythm. It could be someone who is like you have insight. You're just someone who can give insight into a situation, give clarity to a particular challenge or experience that people are having, and it's just something that is natural for you, right? So a gift is what you're naturally born with. It's instinctive and it's effortless. Talent comes naturally, and it is actually gets better with training. So you could be a gifted singer, and it's very apparent that you have a great voice, but you get better at it the more that you refine it and practice it. Same with with the instrumentation, right? If you're a musician, you could have a natural gift for a particular instrument or instruments, and it's the more you practice that it gets better and better, shines brighter and brighter, right? So talent is something that comes naturally, and then it just grows the more you nurture it through practice, right? Talents are particularly important to pay attention to in creating guardrails for, because you can be a talented musician that actually is highly sought after, and you have to make a decision between whether you're going to work in 5 different bands or you're going to focus on 2 specific bands. You have to make a decision. Is you working with all 5 of these bands actually serving my talent, or is the time that's needed to commit to those 5 bands actually creating more exhaustion, um, uh, cause me to experience less passion for the art form, and as a result, causing the quality of what I create as a musician to go downhill, right? As opposed to saying, hey, these are actually two bands that I love. The gigs work for me. It's a schedule that's manageable. It's busy, but it's manageable. And it actually helps to sharpen my skill as a musician because of the community of musicians I'm connected with, and because I have the time to recalibrate and readjust so that I can be better for the next time we play at another gig. So talents have to be guarded and need guardrails because they have the potential of being utilized in a variety of different places, but you have to be discriminate about where it is you're going to allow them to be exercised. Okay, so talents come naturally if they get better through practice. Skills are what you learn over time. Now, there may be something you didn't know how to do, but in the past, but as a result of practice, as a time of getting your reps in, um, you get better and better at it, right? Um, if you are leading an organization, you can get better at being a leader. You can take a job and to lead an organization or a team and really be horrible at it. But it is the time you put in to learn about the role, how to be more effective, practices you put in place to be more effective in the role that actually makes you better over time, right? So a skill is something that you learn over time. And similarly, with practice, you can get better at it. You get better at it. Things like coding, things like cooking, things like writing, those are examples of skills. Now, there are abilities. Abilities are kind of your general capacity. I don't even really like to frame it that way, but it is your mental, physical, and emotional state, right? It's something that you that might be natural or could be developed. You could have the ability, for example, to what's a good example for this? You could have the ability to solve problems very quickly. You could have the ability to process information very fast, to draw a conclusion about what is going to happen before it happens. That's an ability that actually can get better over time. A lot of people don't have that. For example, my wife is really good at this. She can hear, it'll be a television show, and she will see the very beginning of the storyline and be able to identify what the real problem is before it even gets revealed. And 9 times out of 10, she's right. She has this ability, this mental capacity to gather information very quickly in a situation and then make very clear a targeted inference or projection or prediction about what's going to happen, right? And that actually an ability can take shape over time. There are times in your life where you will um grow in your confidence. You'll grow in your ability to speak well in front of an audience. You'll grow in your temperament and how quickly you are able to recalibrate and regroup after someone has said something that's really ticked you off, and rather than lose your you know what, um, really just flip around, turn around really quickly, and like it was a water off a duck's back. It didn't bother you. So those are the ability to shift emotionally in a crisis without getting overwhelmed as you used to, or when someone disagreed with you, you not immediately want to throw hands, right? But you will instead be able to say, well, why do you think that, or what makes you think that, or I'm curious about why you feel that way, right? Very different. It's your ability to negotiate your emotions and a circumstance. Those are abilities, right? So if I were to put together the the uniqueness or the connection between or what it would look like for gifts, talents, abilities, skills to work together. It could look something like this. Like you might have be gifted with a great voice. You might have a talent for music in general, um, but you develop that talent, that skill through voice lessons. And then you, as a result of you developing that talent through voice lessons, you may then also have the ability to perform confidently on stage. So each of them have the potential to build upon one another. Your gifts, talents, skills, and abilities have the capacity to build upon one another. All right. So that's the difference between gifts, talents, skills, and abilities. Right. I hope that gave you some clarity. Here's the real deal overall. If you're going to build sustained momentum, if you are going to get better, invest more deeply in what it is you want to see grow in your own life, then you are going to have to get comfortable with phrases and with decisions that support it. So you saying things like, I'm not going to pursue that right now, or that's not my lane, or this might be a good thing, but it's not my great thing, right? You making decisions like that help you to put guardrails around your potential and increase your ability to focus so that then you're able to nurture your unique gifts, talents, skills, and abilities as you need to and where you need to, and for the benefit of whom they should be serving. Because not everything in your life, excuse me, not everything in your life is supposed to succeed. Newsflash, not everything in your life is supposed to succeed. Not everything you touch is supposed to turn to gold or platinum or diamonds, whatever you want to call it. Some projects should fail. Some things you tackle should fail. Some pursuits you have, they should be abandoned. You should get to a point where there's some things you abandon because it's just not bearing fruit. It's not yielding the potential or yielding from your potential what it should be. Some dreams you have aren't yours. Some dreams and aspirations you have aren't yours, particularly if you've been a gifted generalist. Forgive my coughing, guys. Someone who has gotten used to being a chameleon, recognize that some of the dreams that you have in your head are not your dreams. They're actually the residue from having been this generalist who could chameleonize themselves and serve in a clutch, or always be willing to take on what other people don't. And so you begin to digest the narrative about what your gifts, talents, and abilities and skills really are, and that can sabotage you. So recognize that some of your dreams, even those, should they're not your own, that they were borrowed. um and so you deciding to put guardrails about how you're using your time, emotions, and tangible resources to just a few areas actually helps to recalibrate your thinking. It helps to recalibrate your mind and your values, and it helps to reset the course of where your gifts, talents, and abilities and skills are actually being given and what they're being given to. All right. So you want to focus, you want to own that focus, and you want to recalibrate, and you want to reset. So I want to prepare to land the plane. So let's begin to prepare to land this plane. You've been patient with me throughout this whole conversation. Really thank you for sticking around for it. You essentially need to know what you're built for. You have to know what you're built for. If you don't know what you're built for, you need to invest some concentrated time to figure it out. You will need to understand and embrace the reality that there are some territories that you might like to be a part of, some things you might like to do, but genuinely and authentically, you have no business being a part of for your benefit and the benefit of other people, right? A mechanic shouldn't do heart surgery, okay? A mechanic should not do heart surgery. Um, you a heart surgeon and a mechanic both work on bodies, but they work on two different bodies, right? Two different physical forms. And I wouldn't want the heart surgeon to work on my car, just like I wouldn't want the mechanic to work on my heart. They both are skilled and tooled for the body that they were called to actually serve. Likewise with you, right? Both of them diagnose problems. They both work under pressure. But imagine if they tried to switch roles, the potential damage it would create for people. Okay? So you put guardrails around your potential, even with the mechanic being brilliant. That person, as a mechanic, and mechanics are brilliant. They can diagnose cars just by hearing a sound. Subtle sounds that we would overlook could tell you what the issue is right away. Similarly, a doctor or heart surgeon can do the same by listening to the rhythms in the body to get a sense of what might be going on. With all the brilliance of either one of them, with all the brilliance of a mechanic, you wouldn't want the mechanic trying to fix your heart. And even with the genius of a heart surgeon, you wouldn't want them messing with your engine. Okay? Whatever they do as a hobby is their business. But you'd want somebody who was giving concentrated effort in that particular lane because they had invested their time, their talents and skill set. Maybe they had a natural ability for it, but they invested time in that one direction so they can be good at it and get you the outcome you needed in the repair or readjustment you needed in your vehicle, or the healing and the health you needed restored to your heart if there was a surgeon. All right. Trying to operate outside of your zone of genuine potential isn't just ineffective, it's irresponsible. When you try to operate out of your zone of potential, it's not just ineffective, it's also irresponsible. It puts too many other people at risk. And if we begin to see more of how we use our time, emotions, and resources, tangible resources, to understand that when we put guardrails on our potential, we're actually protecting the value and the impact that we'll have on others, we would take that a lot more seriously and be less haphazard in attempting to be all things to all people, or to be in so many different lanes, hoping to be a master of many when we end up becoming a master of none, right? I mean, similarly, planes and kites, they fly. You would agree? Both planes and kites fly, but planes and kites have two different purposes. Right? Planes are made for transportation. Kites are made to float. Right? They won't switch jobs, right? They can't switch jobs. Planes transport people. Kites can't transport people. All right. Planes are able to move without being held by a string in the air with someone on the ground navigating them. That's required of kites. You've got to know what you're built for, and you need to be able to then flow within the context of what you are skilled, talented, gifted, and have the ability to do, and hone in on the few areas where you can get the most out of them so that you can get maximum benefit. All right. You're not lazy when you do it. You are just smart. You're just exercising wisdom. And so I want you to walk away from this conversation knowing that there's a biblical reference for us to take very seriously the importance of putting guardrails around our potential, to putting guardrails around our focus. In Romans 12:6-8, the scripture talks about how each of us are given different gifts and certain things that others do well, and have the ability to do. Um, each person getting specific gifts and talents that belong to them, but when put together and serving each other collaboratively or serving together collaboratively can have a great impact. So here's the real kicker. Is it really about you being able to do everything? Or is it about you narrowing down your focus and then identifying other people who do other things well that you don't, and seeing how you can collaborate and partner to have the kind of impact that is really a part of the dream that you own, not the dream that was put upon you because you were busy focusing on somebody else's business and adopted their vision. Okay. People perish because of a lack of vision. And you know, one of the ways we perish: overactivity, overextension, putting our hands to focus on things that we should not, that we really should let go of, because the overextension is actually becoming a heart condition in very tangible ways for people. The numbers are high, staggering. The number of people who are experiencing a loss of life or traumatic events with their heart health because they're overextended in ways that they shouldn't. Right? So the idea of you having your own gifts and talents, and the call out from scripture telling us that each of us have our own gifts and have various gifts and talents, whether you are to teach, right, to preach, whatever it might be. That passage and that scripture really is just a picture of the diversity of gifts, and that you have your unique gift and talent and abilities that need to get facilitated and honored by you and cultivated by you, so that it can be used in harmony with other people and serve the world well. All right. So let's land this plane, shall we? There's research that backs up the importance of how we manage our time and how we manage the resource of our talents, of our gifts, skills, and abilities. The Society for Human Resource Management, which is inclusive of over 300,000 HR professionals, they did a study recently, and this organization, they engage over 362 million people, and they found that 37% of workers say that they have jobs that are not a match with their skills, and that 53% of people say they're in roles that don't match their education or training. So what does that tell you? There is a global problem. There's a global momentum problem because people are misaligned. There is a misalignment. People are exhausted, and we are exhausted because we're misaligned with how and where we're using our gifts, talents, and abilities. The solution isn't working harder. The solution is getting better aligned with our gifts, with our talents, with our skills, and with our abilities, and where we're allowing them to be leveraged, and which of them we're allowing to get leveraged at the point in time that we're in our lives. All right. So here's my encouragement to you. Stop trying to gain momentum in everything, because you won't. You won't. You'll end up disappointed. You'll end up frustrated. You'll end up dissatisfied. You're not called to everything. You are not built for everything, but you are built for something exceptional. Remember that orange example I gave you, right? Orange seeds planted in a few places where you know the soil and the temperature and conditions are right for it is a much wiser choice than attempting to plant those seeds in 10 different locations where you don't have as much intel on the quality of the soil and the environment that will impact the growth potential of those seeds. Your life has seeds, it's full of seeds. Where you plant them is very important. And there are times when you'll need to recalibrate and make a decision about where you are putting the seeds of your potential, the seeds of your time, of your emotions, and your tangible resources. And are you someone who have been a chameleon serving other people and gotten lost in identifying just what it is you do well that adds great value and that you want to see flourish? If that is you, if you've gotten caught in the chameleon phase of life, this is a prime opportunity for you to stop the train in its tracks and do some recalibration, because you are without question built for something exceptional, but you just weren't built to do everything exceptionally. So take an inventory of your gifts, talents, skills, and abilities, and then you'll have to make a decision about a few things. You'll need to make a decision about what you will not pursue. So, what will you leave alone? What will you flat out no longer do? What will you give up? How will that be reflected in your relationships, in your schedule, in your yeses, and in your nos? Those build barriers for your potential. So you'll need to build barriers for your potential, and you'll need to let your drive and focus, where you've been giving your time, your emotions, intangible resources, you'll need to make sure that they can live in one or few particular directions to get the most out of them. All right. That's it for today. I think we've done our part. I've kept you a pretty good time today, but I appreciate you for spending time with me. Listen, if you've enjoyed this episode, maybe you had to watch this in 2 or 3 parts. Maybe you sat down and watched the whole thing. I hope you will like and subscribe the podcast. If you haven't already, check out my book, The Momentum List, Rediscover How to Delight in Time rather than be mastered by it. In it, I do give you tools that will allow you and will help you to actually reassess and reevaluate, scrutinize your view of where you've been putting your priorities, and give you a sense of how you need to recalibrate. So, and give you some clear strategies on how to recalibrate so that you can then stop allowing your potential uh, to get held hostage by other people, as opposed to you taking the reins of it and making the greatest impact possible. And so, in the meantime, um, as you move forward throughout the rest of this week and into the future, I encourage you to do what I want you to do each and every day, and that's to take care and live.